Tonight, beneath the velvet sky and whispering palms, Sheherazade begins her second tale, not just to survive, but to soften the heart of a king. From the magical pages of 1001 Nights comes a story of enchantment, sacrifice, and a love so powerful it defies even the cruelest curse. Stay with me, and let me take you into a world of golden chains, forgotten names, and a bond that time could never break. For in this tale, love remembers, even when memory fades. They say love can move mountains, but what happens when love must wait through silence, through time, through a curse that turns a soul into a shadow? In the heart of the ancient East, beneath domes of gold and skies lit by 1,000 stars, one man carried a love so true, it refused to die, even when her name vanished from her lips. This is not just a tale of magic and transformation. It's a story about how devotion endures when memory fades. About how some promises are stronger than spells. And about how, even in the darkest corners of the world, love finds its way home. Tonight, Sheherazade speaks her second tale. A tale of a hind with human eyes. Of a man who gave up everything to set her free. And of the timeless truth that love, real love, never forgets. In the vast desert beyond the edge of the known world, under a sky dyed crimson by the setting sun, a lone traveler led a delicate creature by a golden chain. It was not a horse, nor a dog, but a graceful hind, a doe with eyes like polished amber and fur as soft as moonlight. They walked in silence, the sand whispering beneath their steps, until they reached the place where a condemned merchant knelt before a towering genie. The genie's arms were folded, his eyes blazing with vengeance, ready to strike the final blow. "Wait," said the old man, raising his staff. His voice was calm, yet carried the weight of 1,000 journeys. "Let me tell you my story. And if it moves you, perhaps you will spare this man." The genie narrowed his eyes. "You? An old man with a deer on a leash?" "She is not what she seems," the old man replied. "And neither am I. If my tale is stranger than fate, will you grant the merchant a third of his life?" The genie, amused, agreed with a wicked grin. And so, beneath a palm tree whose leaves trembled in the wind, the old man began to speak, not with pride or sorrow, but with a voice worn by time. "My tale begins long ago, in a city surrounded by mountains and myths. I was once a rich man with herds and gardens, a home filled with music and laughter, and a wife more beautiful than the stars. But behind her beauty hid a secret darker than night. Long ago, in a city where marble palaces shimmered beneath endless blue skies and markets buzzed with the scent of spices and fresh dates, I lived as Reshid the weaver, not of cloth, but of fortune. My hands wove deals as skillfully as tapestries, and my heart belonged to Yasmina, a woman whose beauty could silence the loudest bazaar and whose laughter was a melody even the desert winds envied. Yasmina was the sun in my world. Her dark eyes sparkled like midnight stars, full of secrets and dreams I could barely understand. Every morning, she would scatter jasmine petals across our courtyard, filling the air with sweetness that lingered like a promise. We shared simple joys, dancing barefoot on mosaic floors, sipping sweet tea beneath the palm trees, weaving stories late into the night. Yet, beneath her radiant smile, a restless fire burned. She spoke often of distant lands where rivers flowed with honey, and ancient magicians wielded powers beyond imagination. Sometimes, I caught her staring at the horizon with a faraway look, as if some invisible force was pulling her toward an unknown fate. One night, under a sky heavy with stars, Yasmina confessed her longing in a whisper that trembled like the flicker of a candle. Rashid, as she said, I fear this life, though rich and bright, is a gilded cage. My soul yearns for something deeper, secrets hidden beyond our world, magic that defies time. I promised her the moon and stars, swore to take her anywhere she wished. But with every word, her eyes darkened with sorrow, and the distance between us grew like the desert dunes under a scorching sun. When I awoke the next dawn, a single pale rose petal lay on my chest, delicate and cold as moonlight. Its scent, jasmine mixed with something unfamiliar, was the first whisper of the curse that would change everything. Days turned to weeks, but Yasmina's yearning only grew fiercer, like a desert storm that no shelter could tame. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in flames, she vanished. At first, I thought she had slipped away to the gardens or the market, but night deepened and she did not return. Panic clawed at my chest. I searched every corner of our home, calling her name into the warm night air. The servants whispered of a strange man, cloaked in shadows, who had visited our estate, his eyes cold as obsidian, his words sharp as a scorpion's sting. When dawn broke, I found a letter sealed with dark wax, written in a hand I did not recognize. She who seeks beyond her fate shall find only chains. Your love is a prison, not a sanctuary. My heart shattered like glass underfoot. Had my Yasmina betrayed me? Or was she trapped by forces beyond her control? Haunted by fear and confusion, I followed the faintest trail to an ancient ruin at the edge of the city, where whispers spoke of a sorcerer wielding terrible power. There, beneath twisted vines and crumbling stones, I found Yasmina, her eyes glazed, her body moving like a puppet on invisible strings. A curse had bound her soul, transforming her into the hind I now led, graceful yet trapped between worlds. The golden chain was my promise to protect her, but also a reminder of the curse's cruel grip. My tale is one of love twisted by dark magic, of a man desperate to break the bonds that fate had cast. If you listen closely, perhaps you will hear her gentle steps and feel the sorrow that shadows us both. Freed from the sorcerer's immediate grip but robbed of my memories, I wandered the deserts and mountains, a ghost among the living. Yasmina, now a wild hind, darted through the dunes and thorny bushes, always just beyond reach, a haunting reminder of what I had lost and what I still sought. Villagers told stories of a mysterious old man and his strange companion, a graceful hind who seemed almost human in her eyes. Some whispered that we were cursed, others claimed we were bound by love stronger than death. I tried to piece together the fragments of my past, grasping at fleeting dreams and shadows of a name I no longer knew. Each night, under the vast canopy of stars, I prayed for a sign, a spark to rekindle the fire of remembrance in my heart. Though my mind was clouded, my heart remembered the weight of a golden chain, the softness of jasmine petals, and the sound of laughter carried by desert winds. My journey became a quest, not for riches or glory, but to reclaim the love that fate had stolen, to break the spell that held my beloved captive. The sun was bleeding its last golden rays into the horizon, casting long, twisting shadows over the cracked earth. I stumbled into a hidden oasis, cradled like a precious gem between towering cliffs that seemed to guard it from the world's harshness. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth and blooming lotus flowers, and the gentle murmur of water trickling into a crystal-clear pool was a balm to my weary soul. Collapsing beneath a twisted palm tree whose leaves whispered secrets with every gust of wind, I let out a ragged breath. The sky above was a vast canvas painted in twilight purples and fiery oranges, stars beginning to prick through the dusk like distant lanterns. As I closed my eyes to find a moment's rest, the crunch of footsteps on dry sand startled me. I opened my eyes just in time to see a cloaked figure approach, a traveler, his robes tattered and dust-covered, but his eyes sharp and piercing, burning with quiet sorrow and an ancient wisdom. His voice was low and steady, carrying the weight of many lost years. "Old man, the desert sings your name in the wind. I have heard the story of your lost love and the hind that walks with you." I studied his face, lined like a well-worn map of hardship, and sensed a kindred spirit, a soul scarred by fate's cruel hand. "Perhaps," he said, settling beside me by the flickering flames of a small fire, "our tales are threads of the same tapestry, and together we may find the path to heal our wounds." As the stars blossomed overhead, we exchanged stories beneath the palms' rustling whispers, stories of love and loss, curses and hope. With every word, the burden I carried grew lighter, and the fire within me rekindled. Little did I know, this chance encounter was the turning point, the moment when destiny began to weave its final design. The fire crackled softly as the night deepened, wrapping the oasis in a cloak of velvet darkness. Shadows danced on the palm fronds, and the air was thick with the scent of blooming jasmine and dry earth. The stranger's eyes gleamed in the firelight, reflecting stories untold and battles long fought. He introduced himself as Malik, a wanderer whose own heart bore scars of betrayal and lost love. With a voice both gentle and haunted, he began to share his tale, one of magic, sacrifice, and a curse that mirrored mine. Malik spoke of a dark sorcerer who had once ruled a distant kingdom, wielding power through fear and deceit. This sorcerer had cursed Malik's beloved, turning her into a nightingale, her song silenced beneath an unbreakable spell. As Malik's story unfolded, I felt an uncanny connection, two souls bound by cruel enchantments, searching for light in shadows. The night stretched on, our words weaving a fragile bridge between despair and hope. Under the watchful gaze of the stars, a plan began to form, a daring quest to confront the dark magic that held us captive. For the first time in many moons, the weight on my heart lightened, replaced by a flicker of determination and the promise of redemption. As dawn's first light painted the sky in soft pinks and golds, Malik and I forged a silent pact beside the dying embers of our fire. Two weary souls, bound by curses and lost loves, yet united by hope and determination. "We must seek the ancient scroll of shams," Malik said, his voice steady despite the lingering weariness. "It is said to hold the knowledge to undo even the darkest of spells." I nodded, feeling the fire of purpose ignite within me once more. Though my memories were blurred and fragmented, the image of Yasmina, my transformed wife, burned bright in my heart. Together, we packed what little we had, a worn leather satchel filled with herbs, a rusted dagger, and the golden chain that still bound the hind to me, a symbol of my undying love and vow to free her. Our journey would lead us through treacherous deserts, haunted ruins, and shadowed forests, places where danger lurked in every whisper and magic breathed in every stone. With the rising sun warming our backs, we set forth, two wanderers chasing a sliver of hope in a world tangled by fate. The sands of the eastern desert stretched endlessly before us, a sea of gold and fire, where the wind howled like forgotten spirits and the ground seemed to shift beneath our feet. This was the Desert of Whispers, a place feared by caravanners and marked on no maps. It was said that voices of the lost echoed through the dunes, luring travelers into madness. Malik and I pressed forward beneath a sun so merciless it burned through cloth and skin. Our throats parched, our legs heavy, We walked with the hind trotting silently beside us, her amber eyes scanning the horizon as if she, too, remembered this cursed land. As night fell, the desert transformed. The heat gave way to a chilling silence, and stars flooded the sky like scattered pearls. But with darkness came the whispers. At first, they were faint, like a lover's breath against the ear. Turn back. She chose her fate. You were never enough. I clenched my jaw and pushed on, but the voices grew bolder, more venomous. Malik gripped his staff tighter, sweat dripping despite the cold. They feed on doubt, he muttered. Don't listen. But one voice cut deeper than all the rest, a perfect echo of Yasmina's laughter, twisted into a mocking lilt. I froze. My knees buckled in the sand. The hind stepped close, nuzzling my shoulder as if to say, I'm still here. I rose, trembling but unbroken. We would not be turned away. Not now. As the sky brightened with the first trace of dawn, the whispers faded, and on the distant ridge, half buried in sand, stood the weathered remains of a stone gate. Beyond it lay the ruins of Shamsar, the sunken city of forgotten knowledge, and perhaps the key to breaking the curse. The ruins of Shamsar rose like broken teeth from the shifting sand, half consumed by time and silence. Crumbling towers leaned toward one another like conspirators, and wind screamed through their hollow windows as if the city itself remembered the secrets it once held. No birds sang. No insects crawled. Only silence, heavy, ancient, and alive. We passed through the shattered gate, its archway etched with symbols too old for either of us to read. Malik paused, his fingers brushing one of the markings. This was once a city of light, he whispered. A place where stars and scrolls shared the same language. Now it was a graveyard. The hind walked carefully beside us, her hooves silent against the cracked stones, her head turning with every echo. I could sense something shifting in the air, not quite danger, but presence. As if we were not alone. At the heart of the city stood a collapsed library, its pillars wrapped in ivy-like roots that pulsed faintly, as if still drawing life from the earth. A massive circular platform lay buried beneath layers of sand. Malik began to sweep it clear with his cloak, revealing a pattern, a sun wheel, encircled by 12 silver inlays. He drew a blade from his belt, not to fight, but to bleed. Old magic, he said, slicing his palm and letting the blood drip onto the wheel. It needs to know we came with sacrifice. The moment his blood touched the center, the air shifted. A low hum trembled through the stones beneath our feet. The silver inlays began to glow faintly, one by one, until the wheel pulsed like a beating heart. Then, from the shadows, a voice rose, dry as parchment and old as dust. Who seeks the scroll of Shams? From the darkness beyond the broken columns, a figure emerged, tall, thin, wrapped in rotting silk robes that fluttered despite the still air. His face was hidden beneath a tarnished bronze mask, shaped like the sun eclipsed, its surface cracked and streaked with age. Where his eyes should have been, there burned 2 dim embers. Malik and I stood frozen, every muscle tense. Even the hind lowered her head, a low, uneasy sound humming in her throat. The figure stepped forward with movements too smooth, too quiet. He carried no weapon, but something about him bent the very air around us, like gravity obeyed him. I am the guardian, he said, his voice a dry rattle, left behind by those who knew the words that made the stars. He looked first at Malik, then at me, then at the hind. You seek the scroll of shams. You come to unmake what was sealed in blood and fire. You dare tread into wisdom mortals were never meant to hold. I took a step forward, my voice cracking with dry resolve. I seek only to undo a curse, to free a soul unjustly bound. The guardian tilted his head. Love, he whispered. It burns longer than any flame, and consumes just the same. He gestured to the glowing sun will beneath our feet. One may read the scroll. One must pay the price. Choose. Before I could speak, Malik stepped forward. Let me, he said. My songbird is long gone, but your hind still breathes. You have something left to save. No, I said, my voice trembling. We do this together. But the guardian shook his head slowly. Only one soul may cross the threshold. Only one voice may utter the truth. The wind stirred, and behind the guardian, a staircase of light descended into the earth, shimmering, golden, and ancient. The moment of choice had come. The staircase pulsed with a golden glow, humming softly like a lullaby from the dawn of the world. Each step shimmered beneath layers of stardust and age, as if it had been carved not by hand, but by time itself. Malik turned to me one last time, his eyes fierce yet calm. You must go, he said. Your love still breathes. Mine has long turned to wind and memory. I tried to argue, but he placed a firm hand on my shoulder, a grip that carried both strength and full well. You carry her spirit in your silence. Let her carry yours in freedom. I looked into the eyes of the hind. She met my gaze without blinking. Though no words passed between us, I felt her soul trembling behind that silent form, waiting, hoping, remembering. I stepped onto the first stair. It felt warm, alive. As I descended, the light above dimmed, the sky fading into a distant dream. The stone walls melted into crystal, reflecting faces I didn't know but somehow recognized, echoes of forgotten ancestors, of those who once sought love, knowledge, power. At the bottom, I emerged into a chamber unlike any I had seen, a vast dome carved from obsidian and lit by orbs of suspended starlight. In the center floated a scroll, sealed by 7 rings of pure flame. The scroll of shams. As I stepped closer, the flames flickered and parted, testing me, measuring the weight of my soul. Suddenly, a voice, not loud, not soft, but absolute, filled the chamber without echo. Speak your truth, bearer of burden. Name what you seek, and pay what you owe. My heart thundered. What I sought was clear, to free Yasmina from the curse that bound her, and perhaps to remember the love we once shared. But what would the scroll take in return? I stood before the scroll of shams, the 7 burning rings spinning slowly around it, each flame a different hue: ruby, emerald, sapphire, amethyst, topaz, onyx, and pearl white. The air shimmered with invisible weight, like standing in the presence of judgment itself. The voice echoed again, colder now, closer. What do you offer in return for what you desire? My throat tightened. I had no riches left, no power, no legacy. I had only the aching remnants of love, a name half remembered, a scent that haunted dreams, a hind who once danced barefoot beneath the moon. So I spoke, not with pride or poetry, but with the rawness of truth. I offer my life, I said. My body, my voice, my future, all of it. Let her be free. Let her be human again. Let her remember who she was, even if I fade into shadow. The flames flared, not in anger, but in recognition. Do you accept that in restoring her form, you may lose her heart? That what was broken may never be whole again? I hesitated. Would she remember me? Would she still love me? Would she resent what I had become? An old man, worn thin by time and sorrow? The memory of her smile, the scent of jasmine on warm wind, filled me like a breath I didn't know I was holding. I accept, I whispered. The scroll opened. No hands touched it. The rings dissolved into sparks that drifted into the dome like fireflies at dusk. Symbols older than language bloomed across its surface, alive, burning, speaking directly into my bones. I heard no words, but I understood. It was done. The chamber dimmed, the scroll vanished in a soft pulse of light, and the floor beneath me trembled as the vault began to rise, lifting me slowly back toward the desert sky. Somewhere above, a hind lifted her head as the wind shifted, and in her amber eyes, something human flickered. As I rose through the stone throat of the ancient vault, the desert's breath welcomed me back, dry, hot, and alive with the scent of sand and memory. The staircase of light vanished behind me like mist at dawn, and I stepped once more into the heart of the ruined city, where time stood still and silence waited. Malik was there, standing beside the hind, but something had changed. She was trembling. Her legs shook beneath her, and her eyes blinked rapidly, as if waking from a deep and terrible dream. The golden chain that once bound her glowed white-hot, then snapped in two with a flash of light and a soft chime, as delicate as breaking glass. She cried out. Not a cry of an animal, but the gasp of a woman pulled from deep waters. Her form shimmered, twisted, blurred, and then reshaped. Before me stood Yasmina. No longer the hind, but the woman I once knew, cloaked in a veil of starlight and dust, her hair falling in wild waves down her back, her eyes wide with confusion and wonder. She stumbled, and I ran to catch her. But as our hands met, her gaze searched mine, and faltered. "Who are you?" she whispered. My heart clenched. The price I paid had carved its mark. My name, my face, our years together, all gone from her mind like footprints blown from the dunes. "I was someone who once loved you," I said gently, forcing a smile. "And who still does?" Tears welled in her eyes. A part of her, somewhere deep, remembered. Not facts, not names, but warmth. Familiarity. Echoes. Malik stepped back, giving us space. The ruins seemed to sigh with us, as if the city itself knew the weight of what had just passed. The curse was broken. But love, like magic, never returns untouched. The wind stirred the dust around our feet, carrying with it the scent of jasmine and old fire. Yasmina stood before me, barefoot on ancient stone, her eyes wide and shimmering, searching. I held her gently, afraid that even the smallest movement might send her fleeing like a frightened deer. She touched my face, slowly, as though it were carved from smoke. Her fingers traced the lines time had left, pausing at the corner of my mouth, where a smile had once lived more easily. "I don't know you," she said, voice no louder than a breeze. "But I feel like I should." I nodded. "That's enough for now." Tears rolled down her cheeks. She didn't wipe them away, as if they weren't sorrow, but something sacred. Perhaps some fragment of her heart still carried the memory her mind could not. Malik watched from a distance, his face unreadable, though the glint of wetness in his eyes betrayed a storm he kept buried. "She's free," he said softly. "That's more than most ever get." I nodded, but a strange ache bloomed in my chest, not regret, not joy. Something between. The sacrifice had been mine, and I would bear its silence without bitterness. But even the noblest wounds still sting. As the sun climbed higher, Yasmina leaned into me. Her body remembered what her mind had lost. Her head rested on my shoulder like it used to, long ago, under the palm trees of our old home. And for a moment, beneath the ruins of a forgotten city, we stood together in the golden light, not as husband and wife, not even as strangers, but as something new. Two souls meeting again at the edge of what once was. The journey was not over. But love, I realized, does not depend on memory. It only needs presence and time. We left the ruins of Shamsar as the sun began its slow descent behind the dunes, casting long shadows over the desert's skin. The wind was gentle now, as if the land itself had grown tired of testing us. Yasmina walked beside me, no longer bound, no longer silent, but still unsure. She would glance at me from time to time, her brow furrowed, as though trying to catch a memory darting just out of reach. Malik followed a few paces behind, quiet as ever, his staff marking steady rhythms in the sand. As twilight fell, we made camp in a crescent of stone beneath a sky ablaze with stars. The fire crackled, casting a warm circle of light, and Yasmina sat close, her knees drawn to her chest. "I dreamed of dancing," as she murmured suddenly, her eyes fixed on the flames. "Barefoot. On tiles, all blue and gold." My heart skipped. That was our garden. The mosaic tiles. The place where we used to laugh until dawn chased us inside. "You used to," I said softly. "You danced every night beneath the jasmine trees." She turned toward me, slowly. "Did I love you?" I hesitated, not because I doubted, but because the weight of love had changed shape. What we had was real, but what we were now was different. "You did," I said at last. "And I loved you. I still do. But I don't expect anything from what was. Only that we walk forward, together, if you choose." She was quiet a long time, the firelight painting flickers across her face. Then, silently, she reached for my hand. Not out of memory, not out of obligation, but out of a small, trembling hope. And I held it, not too tight, just enough. In that fragile connection, something stirred. Not the past, but the beginning of something new. Days passed. The landscape softened as the harsh dunes gave way to gentle hills and palm-lined rivers. We traveled without hurry, allowing time to shape our silence into comfort and our distance into closeness. Yasmina was changing, not returning to who she had been, but becoming someone new, forged in freedom and touched by memory's shadows. One morning, we came upon a small village nestled between date groves and fields of saffron. Its rooftops were flat and whitewashed, its streets winding and fragrant with spices. Children played beneath canopies of linen, and old women watched from shaded balconies, their eyes glittering with stories. Something about the village stirred me, a tug in the chest, familiar but blurred. I didn't remember its name, nor the faces, but a warmth spread through me as if I had once laughed here, once belonged. Yasmina felt it too. "This place," as she said, her fingers grazing a wall painted with faded blue patterns, "it feels like it once knew me." A woman selling figs stared at us, her eyes widening. She stepped forward, gently touching Yasmina's arm. "By the heavens," as she whispered, "you've returned." Yasmina froze. "Returned?" The woman nodded, tears brimming. "You and your husband, you vanished years ago." The garden stood empty, but no one dared enter. The jasmine still blooms, as if waiting. My breath caught. She led us through winding paths to a modest home wrapped in flowering vines. The gate creaked open with a sigh, and the scent, that scent, of blooming jasmine and warm stone washed over us. The mosaic tiles were cracked but familiar. The fountains still trickled. Yasmina stepped into the courtyard and stood still, as though the air itself whispered her name. She knelt and touched the earth, her eyes flooding. I remember the music, the wind. I stood behind her, silent. Not to lead, not to remind, but to witness. The past had found her, and the garden had waited. The village embraced us like an old story rediscovered, its people weaving threads of kindness and curiosity around Yasmina and me. Each day brought small moments of healing, a child's laughter echoing in the courtyard, the scent of fresh bread baking in earthen ovens, the gentle hum of prayers at dawn. Yasmina began to find pieces of herself in these moments, the way sunlight danced on the walls, the softness of woven cloth beneath her fingers, the familiar taste of pomegranate juice. Her smile, once fragile and hesitant, grew stronger, more certain. I took to helping the villagers, mending roofs, tending gardens, sharing stories of distant lands and starry skies. The golden chain, once a symbol of bondage, hung from my neck now as a quiet reminder of the journey, a promise kept and a love endured. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in lavender and rose, Yasmina and I sat beneath the blooming jasmine tree in our courtyard. The air was thick with the fragrance of flowers and the soft buzz of evening insects. She turned to me, eyes clear and warm. "I may not remember everything," as she said softly, "but I know this, that wherever I am, love can find me again." I reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "And wherever I go, I will search for you, in memory or in moments yet to come." The stars began to twinkle overhead, as if the heavens themselves blessed this fragile, blooming hope. Beneath the vast tapestry of stars, Yasmina and I stood side by side, the soft breeze carrying the scent of jasmine and the promise of tomorrow. The past, with all its curses, losses, and forgotten memories, lay behind us like the fading footprints in desert sands. Our love, tested by magic and time, had transformed into something new, a quiet, steady flame that neither curse nor oblivion could extinguish. Malik's words echoed in my mind, that love burns long and fierce, consuming and renewing in equal measure. Though Yasmina's memories were fragments, and my own heart bore the scars of sacrifice, we faced the horizon together, not as the same souls who once danced beneath marble palaces, but as two wanderers bound by fate and hope. The road ahead was uncertain, winding through lands both familiar and strange. But one truth remained clear. Love is not only remembered, it is lived. And so, with the hind's graceful steps now replaced by Yasmina's steady footsteps, we walked forward into the dawn. The story was far from over.